All right, sir, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started with the US-INDOPACOM panel, which is our last panel of the evening. So last but not least, and good morning to those in Korea.
Hey, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
Loud and clear, sir.
All right. Hey, my name is Brigadier General Brian Horton, 351K Com Commander. Appreciate the opportunity to engage with the group today. Um, so the 351 is gift mig assigned to US INDOPACOM. There's a lot going on in theater, and as I was kind of mulling over what to discuss during this roundtable, I looked at, some campaigning stuff, countering Chinese influence, the whole Lisco fight, um, building partner capacity, and what I really wanted to do was kind of find areas of excellence where we're doing things in Indo-Pacific probably better than we're doing in other places. And I think the one place that we're doing some of the stuff that we're getting after what General Carter was talking about this morning is really providing value to our supported commanders and getting into those supported commanders' decision-making processes. And that the place that we're doing that extremely well right now is in Korea. So I've got a number of folks from Combined Forces Command online that makes up our panel for tonight. They're all out of the CFC C9, which is really the nexus on where we are doing multi-domain targeting, and it's the nexus of MDO targeting, um, doing civil affairs assessments, and CKI. And we're just coming out of Freedom Shield, and I think that we've been kind of building this this process really well over the last few years. So before I hand it over to them, I think many people online are pretty familiar with the command relationship and command structure in Korea. But for those who don't, I'll just give you a really quick overview. So you have U.S. Forces Korea, which is the United States military DoD force provider to Combined Forces Command. Then you have ROC JCS, the ROC military, which is the ROC force provider to Combined Forces Command. And during times of conflict, Combined Forces Command stands up. All of these forces fall under into this multinational alliance of U.S. ROC forces. There's also United Nations Command. Uh, I don't think we're going to talk about that much tonight, but the Combined Forces Command is 85% ROC forces. If you think about what they have on the pen, when I was there a couple of years ago, I need to go back and check my math, and maybe Major Likens can help me out. They had 8 active corps with all of their divisions on the pen at any given time, and we're providing really one corps to the fight. So it's what we are producing or what we're sending is a very small piece of this. When we talk about civil affairs activities and civil affairs operations, they are going to stand up a civil affairs command with, and I don't know what the classification is, so we won't get into number of battalions, number of brigades, or stability brigades, but they will stand up a command, uh, well over the size of a U.S. infantry division. They will provide that to the fight. Those civil affairs forces will go and integrate into the ROC divisions, and then as the rear area of that those divisions moves forward during the fight, behind them comes stability to brigades, and so it's a very unique situation. And then the Combined Forces Command C9 is the directorate that oversees the mobilization and deployment of those CA forces. Is actually built by ROC Special Warfare Command, and then really directs civil affairs activities. And again, so what I'm going to do, just I'm gonna hand it over to Major Cayman Likens. He is the CFC C9 FUOPS officer. We also have Sergeant Natalia Barraza. She is our CKI NCO. And then we also have on the line Lieutenant Colonel Guk Seung Young. I'm sorry, Guk Sung Yang. I'm gonna kill this. Lieutenant Colonel Guk Sang Yun and Major Lim Hyung Yu from the ROC Army, who will also provide some inputs. We do have a translator online, so there may be some translation happening. And if you have questions, especially for our ROC partners, please feel free to ask, and we'll make sure those get translated at the end. But I will go ahead, share my screen, and Major Lycan, hand it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. As General Horton just alluded to, my name is Major Cayman Likens. I'm the Operations Officer for the Combined Force Command C9, and we have our ROC partners here, Lieutenant Colonel Kook and Major Lim, as well as Sergeant Baraza. We'll be discussing the CFC C9 approach to civil affairs operations in the Korean Peninsula. Right, so our agenda for today, hold on, sorry, wait till you're up and running. Next slide. Our agenda for today is listed. We're going to go through each one of these points one at a time. Some of this will be in Korean and we'll translate for you. And the rest of it will be in English, so you should be good to go. Next slide, sir. Okay. So during conflict, the CFC will be activated and will be the overall command and control element for all joint and combined forces on the Korean Peninsula. Go ahead and click, sir. This is an animated slide, so one click at a time. And click again. CA battalions will be stood up, trained, and assigned to their predetermined areas and corresponding corps. Click one more time, sir. As the forward line of troops moves north, the CA battalions will remain in their respective areas, and new CA battalions will be assigned to the new areas with their predetermined corps. Stability brigades will then assume command and control over the CA battalions until 84 requirements are met for battle space transfer. Once the BST is complete, the ROC JCS will assume control over the area and stability operations will continue until complete. This presents a unique problem for the CFC C9. We established the following problem statement. Civil affairs must provide civil information for both CFC combat operations processes and ROC JCS stability operations processes with units and personnel receiving less than 2 weeks training. To provide a solution, we focused on 3 key principles. The civil information needs to be simple enough for understanding across the joint force and at echelon, relevant for combat operations and stability operations, and reliable enough for targeting and battle space transfer requirements. I'll now turn it over to Major Lim, who'll discuss the next portion of our brief. Major Lim. Next slide.
저는 연합사 민군부의 이명규 소령입니다. 전술적 수준의 평가가 가능하도록 충분히 단순화해야 하고 동시에 연합사 작전 수행을 위해 필요한 필수 정보를 제공할 수 있어야 합니다.
I am Major Lim Hyung-yu of the CFC C9. Assessments at the tactical level must be simple enough to be executed while simultaneously providing necessary information for combat operations of the CFC. Next slide.
뿐만 아니라 평가는 후속해서 들어오는 안정화 여단이 전장 이항을 받는 한국 합참을 위해 안정화 작전을 시작하는 데 필요한 정찰을 제공해야 합니다. 그러므로 객관적 점수를 부여한 점수는 전술적 제대에서부터 전략적 제대에 걸쳐 공통적이고 신뢰할 만한 것이어야 하고 전투작전을 위해 필요로 하는 정확한 정보와 더불어 시브칸 및 부수적 피해 예상 평가 등의 자료들을 생산해서 표적 처리와 안정화 작전을 지원하고 전장 이항 조건에 충족하기 위해 관련성 있는 정보여야 합니다. 평가 내용은 연합사 민군부의 시브카, 표적 처리 절차, 정보 요구 및 픽스 데이터베이스를 위한 분석에 필요한 데이터를 제공해야 합니다.
Additionally, the assessments are a reconnaissance of sorts for the incoming stability brigades to begin their stability operations for ROC JCS. Therefore, the objective scoring had to be reliable and universal from the tactical to strategic echelons, while also being relevant enough to provide accurate information for combat operations in the form of a CivCop and collateral estimates for targeting and stability operations, bridging the gap for battle space transfer requirements. Assessments provide data for analysis for the CFC C9 CivCop, targeting process, request for information, as well as for RPICS database. Next slide. There you go.
Hi, this is Sarian Barraza here. This is an example and a screenshot of our CFCC9 PITS database. As you can see on the table of contents, it will summarize everything that we have available, and it's our main information sharing effort. This is all at the unclassified level. We will have all of our GIS resources and everything that is done at the CKI level that it's unclassified. This is done through scraping, and then we do some products with civil estimates that we shared with the J22 here, WPS, One Piece and Security, CFEN, and other directorates. And next slide, please. That's me.
You're good. Go ahead and move on.
The assessments are divided into 4 main categories, which not only provide information for combat operations, but align with the 84 requirements for BSD. This is an example of an infrastructure restoration assessment. The overall score, or RAM, Relationship Analysis Metric score, is located in the upper right corner of the assessment. The scale is -5 to 5 with 0 meaning unknown. The back side of the assessment has criteria for each numerical value reference. I'm now going to detail the assessment itself. Next slide, please.
Here is more detailed view of an IR assessment.
Yeah. Here's a more detailed view of an IR assessment. The top of the assessment is the information section with the usual date, time, and location. The left side of the assessment is the objective portion. The scores are based on numerical values located on the back part of the assessment. Totals for each section are located on the far left side of the assessment. These totals are averaged for the overall RAM score in the upper right corner.
To the right side, go keep going.
Then the right side of the assessment is the subjective portion. Comments can and should be provided by the assessor for reference. The bottom is reserved for overall comment section. Again, the overall score for the assessment is in the upper right corner. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide.
There you go.
Yes. On the assessment, once the assessments are complete, their scores from the upper right corner are consolidated on a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is organized by village, town, city, and province. And each echelon of social organization is scored totaled and average for an overall provincial score. Each category is also totaled and average to provide more analysis potential as needed. The average for the province is located in the center of the circle. Again, there are 4 major categories to provide information for combat operations and stability operations. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Yep.
And then I turn it to Lieutenant Colonel Cook.
You're good.
저는 연합사민군부의 국상현 중령입니다. 보시는 내용은 주민 상황에 대한 공통작전 상황도, 즉 시브카빙입니다. 전술적 수준에서의 평가에 의거 점수가 매겨지면 CKI 반에서 이것이 종합되고 분석이 됩니다. 이후 이들 점수가 지도상에 적용되어 주민 상황에 대한 이해를 돕게 됩니다. 주민 상황에 대한 이해는 단기적인 전투작전뿐만 아니라 장기적인 안정화 작전을 위해 중요합니다. 또한 이러한 세부 평가 내용은 연합사의 표적 처리 절차에 있어서도 핵심적입니다.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel Sung-Young Cook of the CFCC9. This is an example of a civilian operating picture, or CivCop. Scores provided from the tactical level assessments are gathered and analyzed by the CKI cell. Those scores are then applied to the map for civil situational understanding. This civil understanding is critical for both combat operations in the near term and stability operations in the long term. Additionally, the specifics of these assessments are vital to the targeting process for the CFC. Next slide.
I'll now discuss how this information fits the targeting process. Next slide, please. So here you can see a simplified graphic of fundamental battlefield geometry. Targeting at the CFC level is strategic and focuses on kinetic, lethal, non-kinetic, and non-lethal effects. The CFCC9 provides collateral estimates for the joint targeting process, as well as inputs for differentiating between desired kinetic, lethal, non-lethal, and non-kinetic effects. These effects are applied throughout the core, deep, and close areas, and the CFC deep and close areas. Next slide, please. For reference, here's a quick joint targeting fundamentals. Joint targeting must be focused of effects-based, interdisciplinary, and systematic. All effects must be tied to a strategic end state. The CFCC9 provides critical information before, during, and after targets are engaged. As an example, during FS25, the CKI cell provided analysis for more than 85 sensitive targets during the TWG, Targeting Working Group, and more than 120 targets for the Marines and Navy before target submittal. Additionally, the CKI cell worked closely with CFEN, C2, and DTRA, which is the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, to provide complete battlefield picture for decision makers throughout the targeting process. Next slide, please. Convergence targeting is a principle which promotes mass systematic effects. These can vary based upon the type of target engaged. Deliberate targets are planned and synchronized, and dynamic targets require minimal planning time and occur usually within the 24-hour period. Planned targets are known for unknown, and engagements are pre-planned. Targets of opportunity occur throughout operations and require a rapid response for effects. Hope that makes sense.
Makes total sense. Okay.
Next slide, please. So here's an outline of the basic targeting process. The targeting working groups plan for deliberate targets and synchronize effects across the joint force. Once targets are approved, they are presented to the commander on a high priority target list, or HPITL, for a final approval at the targeting decision board. Once the commander approves, targets are engaged, and an assessment working group determines the viability of effects and if certain targets need to be re-engaged. This process is ongoing throughout combat operations and is at the heart of what combatant command is trying to achieve. Being a central part of the targeting working group is essential for establishing the CFCC9 as critical staff and promoting value-added proposition for the future. Next slide, please. So I'm going to show 3 examples, and these are mocks. This is just an example of what we used during FS25 and what we provided to the targeting working groups. So in this mock-up, we contributed to a targeting working process. And this example just shows a power station which supports military activities. The civil estimate that we provided concluded that disabling the power station will not affect the civil population, as 81% relies on self-sufficient power, which is solar panels. We concur with the target engagement because it will not affect the civil population. Next slide, please. This next proposed target aimed to disable communication towers. However, the civil estimate concluded disabling lines of communication would directly impact the population, motivating them to move and disrupting or delaying friendly freedom maneuver or resupply. Additionally, in the long term, the target engagement will be messaging potential. We concurred with restrictions to engage the target with non-kinetic means to achieve the effect while not inhibiting future operations or objectives. Next slide, please. And in this one, we obviously do not have the DTRA plan analysis, but this will be when a target involves CWMD. We provide civil estimates and directly collaborate with the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA, to provide accurate estimates of the civil effects target engagement. This allows us to provide target engagement options for effect risk of population collateral effects. Non-kinetic effects were recommended during the targeting working group in coordination with electronic warfare space and the C39. Next slide, please. Now we'll move into the stability operations process. The assessments from the CA battalions provide information requirements for stability operations for ROC JCS. So next slide. Remember, during combat operations, CA battalions are stood up, trained, and assigned their individual corps within 2 weeks. They are responsible for conducting assessments, which provides information requirements for the targeting process and other processes for combat operations. Additionally, the CA battalion's assessments provide information requirements for the incoming stability brigade's response for provided the 84-point requirement checklist for biospace transfer, BST. The CA battalions assessments act as reconnaissance elements for the stability brigades as they assess and prepare for the BST. The CA battalions and the stability brigades work together after BST to complete the stability operations under command of ROC JCS on the stability until the stabilization is complete. Next slide, please. The CFCC9 is not only focused on the problem statement we discussed previously, but it's also focused on maximizing our value in current operations in the real world. Next slide, please. This is one of the products that we have published under our PITs, and we will discuss that with the J2, and we sync with the J2. So in this example that the CKI cell developed, we use an open source information, which is then synced with the two. In this product, we assess political prisoners that are forced to work in the construction, which could be a direct line into fitting DPRK. For the future if conflict were to occur. Next slide, please. And that is, yep. Oh, we'll let them read.
Cool.
Yeah.
To review, during conflict, the CFC will be activated and will be the overall command and control element for all joint and combined forces on the Korean Peninsula. Go ahead and click through, sir. CA battalions will be stood up, trained, and assigned to their predetermined areas and corresponding corps. Go ahead, sir. And one more. And one more, sir, and we're good to go. As the foreign line of troops moves north, CA battalions will remain in their respective areas, and new CA battalions will be assigned to the new areas with their predetermined corps. Stability brigades will then assume command and control of the CA battalions until the 84 requirements are met for battle space transfer. Once the BST is complete, ROC JCS will assume control over the areas, and stability operations will continue until complete. And again, the problem statement being that this all has to be accomplished during the speed of combat operations, and those stability operations then follow. So our key principles of the information from the civil environment being simple, relevant, and reliable in those assessments was the foundational principles for how we built the assessments. Next slide. Here's the CFC-C9 Training Plan of Action and Milestones, or POAM. The CFC-C9 is focused on support to Freedom Shield, Ultra Freedom Shield, and train the trainer events with ROC SWIC Special Warfare, who are assigned to stand up and train the CA battalions we discussed previously. We are in coordination with elements from the 351st Civil Affairs KCOM, the 358 Civil Affairs Brigade, USISOC's 95th Civil Affairs Global Response Directorate, and the 97th Civil Affairs Battalion under 1st Special Forces Group. These elements will provide personnel and support for the CFC-C9 training objectives. Ultimately, the CFC-C9 needs to provide simple, relevant, and reliable civil information to maximize effects for the Tri-Command during armistice and potential conflict. Our ROC partners, both in the Tri-Command and ROC SWIC, are working together to provide such assets across the Joint Combined Force. Next slide. Pending your questions and/or comments, this concludes our brief for today. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Hey, appreciate that very much. I know we've got some questions. I see some in the chat, but I have not had a chance to take a look at them. I do want to ask a real quick question. I know we've been working the assessments piece on how do we get the assessment tools down to the civil affairs teams that are assigned to battalions, brigades, divisions that are moving north. How are we capturing those assessments, and how are we getting pushed back up to CFC-C9 so that you guys can build a complete civ cop for the commander to make decisions with?
So right now, what we're focused on is our PACE plan. In training, we've been able to use email. There are also various other methods we can use for communication. Honestly, it's pretty difficult to predict what the communications environment will be in LESCO, particularly if we discuss third-party interventions from larger nations to the north of North Korea. So at this point, we're working through a PACE plan with our ROC partners so that we can do just that. The assessments themselves are going to be trained at the ROC SWIC level to the battalions during their MOBEXs. And we have 4 to 6 trainings a year where civil reconnaissance, civil engagement, other CA tasks, as well as how to fill out those assessments and get them back to their higher echelons, how that will all be accomplished. So we're in the process of that now, sir.
Got it. Okay. Hey, I saw Chris Stuckel had his hand up. Chris, did you have a question?
Yeah, Brian, so as the commander of the 351 KCOM and then over to came in the C9 section, how important is the U.S. Army Reserve relationship by building readiness, by doing reconnaissance, relationships, and rehearsals in your plan to support INDOPACOM, which includes the Korea Theater of Operations? Over.
Yeah, so the way that the 351 is sliced and diced. I've got 2 civil affairs brigades. One is primarily in support of First Corps and First Corps activities throughout the rest of the Pacific. We do have the 358 does do some other things it's on Asia proper on the continent. So anything that's happening really down through China, India, to Thailand, and then even across to Japan. But the Asia mainland really belongs to 358, and they own the relationship with 8th Army for the most part. 364 handles really the rest of the Indo-Pacific in support of First Corps. So 358, and actually JP Lecedra is on, and he might want to share what he's doing. But the major muscle movement or partnership is really with 358, 8th Army, and then what we have with 351 and not with First Corps, with CFC, UNC, and USFK. 351 provides primarily operational staff augmentation to the 4-star commands on the peninsula. We work directly with CFC-C9 as our major training partner, and we do everything with regards to Freedom Shield, Ulchi Freedom Shield, and other events. Like we've got some folks going over to the CMO TTX later this month, I believe. 358 really supports 19th ESC, 2nd ID, 8th Army, and they are fully engaged. So when we support these exercises, they help fill out those G9 sections at those 2 and 3-star commands. And then we are actively working with CFC and ROC JCS to do the train the trainer events that Cayman is talking about. So we've had folks from the 492nd Civil Affairs Battalion go over, work with ROC SWIC to really build out their TTPs, and we're working to write or helping them to write their CA doctrine. Right now, it's a lot of information sharing. The real challenge that we're going to have is they do not have anybody that's actually CA qualified in their command as they establish their civil affairs command. It is, several thousand prior conscripts from ROC SWIC. So they're prior special forces conscripts and NCOs that are going to fill those ranks. And then they're pulling officers from multiple different places within ROC JCS to fill those officer positions throughout the command. So a lot of work with our ROC counterparts to train and equip them for civil affairs operations. I will hand it over to Cayman to expound on any of that. And then if JP wants to jump in and talk about what 358 is doing.
No, sir, I think that was a really good explanation. As I'm looking through the questions in the chat, understand the CA battalion stability brigades, those are all ROC. So language barriers is not an issue, just to answer people's questions.
Hey, everybody, this is Colonel JP Lecedra, 358 Civil Affairs Brigade. So exactly on point, obviously, with General Horton, we operate within his campaign plan. So complementing what KCOM is doing with their various mostly CAPTs on the peninsula at the 4-star level. We maintain really close presence, we being the brigade headquarters and our 3-star operational level CAPTs at 8th Army, and then our subordinate battalions maintain relationships with the divisions, but brigade manages those relationships because we have 4 battalions, 3 of whom are what we do is our brigade campaign plan or operational plan suggests the 3 of the 4 battalions that they should be preparing for LISCO with, we say the terminology we use, second ID or a doctrinally similar unit, because, you know, and we're not going to get into the war plan here, but second ID is not going to be the only division if something kicks off, at least not likely. And then we have 1 battalion that focuses on really the operationally kind of logistical mission of the mass evacuation that would occur, and that would be facilitated in large part by 19th ESC over in the south of the southern part of Korea, South Korea. So what does that mean? What we're typically doing is you know, although General Horton says yes, and it's true, our mission is throughout the Asian mainland, or like the Asia proper. Probably like 80% of what our efforts go to are within the Korean peninsula, because that's an operational mission. And really what it gets to is it ties to what General Carter was asking, which is, hey, so what should we do to be relevant? You know, as we're thinking about phase 2 and phase 3.
Key NCOs primarily into the Fort Knox lane using the 84.
Okay. I think we have a hot mic.
I caught it. You're good.
Okay. Thank you, Caroline. So it gets into what General Carter was saying this morning, which is how do we address the issue of us being relevant in phase 2 and phase 3? Our response to that question, at least in Korea, and I think it ties over to some other theaters, is you have to be there in phase 0, which is right now. We're currently in phase 0, which is So what we're doing in phase 0 is we're involved with their inputs for their planning. For, as General Horn just said, we just finished Freedom Shield. We have Ulti Freedom Shield, which is the corresponding operation or exercise in August, and we're continuously maintaining the relationships. It's an open dialogue constantly. We're lucky, you know, we have Will Smith over at CFC. He's one of us. He and I have worked together in 353 KCOM and get to work together again. Constant dialogue. We're close with the Division 9s and the Corps 9, or rather Army 9, but those are decrementing in the next year or two, which is both unfortunate, but also provides us with an opportunity to kind of expand and fill that role. Or at least, if not fill the role, fill the duties that come with that role, and really be involved not just with the 9 sections, but it really comes down to answer that, you know, question that General Carter posed. It gets into being involved not just with the 9, but with the 3 and really with the 5 as they're doing the war plans. So obviously not going to talk in detail about war plans or development of war plans in this setting, but it is something that we are involved with pretty much steady state in Korea. At the 3 and 2-star level for 358. So that's kind of the general wide brush overview, how we complement 351 Command's campaign plan in Korea. So I'll hand it back off to General Horton.
Hey, yeah, thanks, JP. Hey, so Chris Holshek asked a question. Yeah, so CFC, the question is, your maps all show operations in North Korea. What planning considerations for CAO and LISCO would be different for combat and stability operations in the ROC? I will answer that, and then I will see if one of our ROC counterparts, either Lieutenant Colonel Cook or Major Lim, would like to provide some additional details. CFC is 100% North Korea focused. It is the warfighter that if things kick off, they're going to defend the DMZ, and then will potentially counterattack into North Korea and liberate North Korea from the North Korean regime. And I think that the big thing that you need to recognize here is that the ROC does not recognize DPRK as a sovereign country. So what you have, and this is where they take civil affairs and the civil environment very, very seriously, because they consider North Koreans as ROC citizens. So everything that the CFC does is really North focused. There is a very robust martial law plan for South Korea, and there is a combined rear area command that will oversee all things civil engagement, and whether you're talking about displaced civilians or HA requirements within the ROC. The U.S. is going to do very, very little in South Korea. It is going to be very much ROC dominated by ROC JCS and the ROC government. But I will ask Major Kook or I'm sorry, Lieutenant Colonel Kook or Major Lim if they have any other things that they want to talk about with reference to civil affairs operations or stability operations south of the DMZ during conflict.
연합사의 민군부는 MDL 이남 지역에서의 민군 작전은 통제하지 않습니다.
The CFC-C9 does not control the civil military operations south of the MDL.
앞서 말씀해 주신 것처럼 그 지역에 대한 민군에 대한 통제는 합참과 이작전사에서 진행하고 있습니다.
As I mentioned, CMO are controlled by ROC JCS and 2OCs for the rear area of the south of the MDL.
연합사 민군부는 MDL 이북 북한 지역에서의 민사 작전과 민군 작전의 영역에서만 조정 통제를 하고 있습니다.
And CFC-C9 has only a control for the CMO and CAO north of the MDL.
추가적으로 질문 있으시면 답변 드리겠습니다.
Are there any additional questions?
No, thank you. I think you answered the question. So the next question on here, forgive me if I missed this. What commander approves the handover? And I will let Cayman, if you want to talk about battle space transfer, you don't need to get too in depth on it, but you can talk a little bit to that question.
Understood, sir. So the battlefield transfer is based on, as we said in the brief, the 84-point requirements for battle space transfer from the CFC to ROC JCS. So CFC can suggest that battle space transfer, but ROC JCS has to approve that transfer based on those 84 points. So ROC JCS fundamentally owns that decision. I hope that answers the question, and especially with this classification, that's about as in-depth as I can get.
Yeah, I will just add, so it's a combined, I wouldn't say it's a negotiation. Once those 84 points have been met, and it has everything to do with from security, like local security, to HA, to electrical power, running water, all those things. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be at the minimum acceptable requirement for the agreement for battle space transfer. The very first battle space transfer will be conducted, that the approval for that is actually at the national authority level. And then once that first battle space transfer is complete, that approval will be pushed down to chairman of the ROC JCS and the commander of CFC. And at that point, every battle space transfer moving forward, and it will happen in chunks. As the CFC forward line of troops continues to move forward and stability is affected in the rear area, it'll happen as areas become more and more secure. So that's kind of how that will work moving forward.
Sir, if I can add one more thing to that, that's why the assessment piece at the C9 has been such a challenge, because those assessments not only have to feed the 84 points you just discussed in that stability operations, but in the fight, those assessments are also channeling towards the targeting process and combat operations. So the assessments basically have to perform two functions at the same time. Plus, they're going to be done by personnel who are not necessarily experts on doing assessments. So that gets back to our core principles of simplicity, reliability, and relevancy.
Yeah, and I do want to just hit that point again. I know we've mentioned it a couple of times. The civil affairs soldiers that constitute the civil affairs command coming out of Roxwick that are supporting the combined forces fight are very limitedly civil affairs trained. They're gonna get mobilized. They're gonna get 2 weeks of training at best. then they're going to get deployed forward. We have been out there. I've gone out and I've seen they do their 3-day annual training where they shoot some guns, they put on their uniform, and then they actually do a day or so of civil reconnaissance, preparing assessments. And so we have been working with them to develop the assessment tool. We have been working to automate that so it's on a handheld device. So as they actually conduct the assessments, it will push automatically up into the system of record that we use, whether that's PICS or something else. But to Major Kamen's point earlier, it's just going to depend on what kind of cellular or radio or satellite capability we've got to push those assessments up. But these civil affairs soldiers are civil affairs soldiers in name, not necessarily in robust training. So it's an interesting dynamic, and what we're trying to do right now is prepare them as best we can through train the trainer through 358 and some of their down trace. Any other questions for our CFC C9 folks? See no more questions. I think we've culminated earlier than planned.
That's great.
But that's it from the 351. Barring any last minute alibis, I will turn it back over to Carolyn.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And thank you to the partners over in Korea and all the panelists for joining us this morning for you all. With that, that's actually going to wrap up our panel sessions. And so thank you for all the panelists, both this morning as well as this evening from across the globe that have dialed in, and everyone else that has participated. And so we will have, as we usually do, all the documents will be published out into the members only section of the Civil Affairs Association website. And so the slides will be, typically they're found in the research library once you get past the members access point. So once we get everything organized and all the minutes out, those will be published there. But with that, Sir General Van Roosen, I'm going to pass it back to you for some closing remarks and the piece for JP for the next steps.
Carolyn, thank you very, very much. Before I go into closing remarks, let me turn over to JP to have him talk very briefly about the upcoming symposium. So if you could, JP, can you address our upcoming event this November?
Hey, sir, I was actually, apologies, I was prepared to talk after you were done. Kind of jumping between civilian work in here. Would it be possible to give me a bit of an alibi before you hit it over to me?
Yep, no problem. I'll come back to you at the end then. And if need be, I can do it for you too. So back to closing remarks. I would like to thank Carolyn Pogge for putting this together. This is a notable roundtable. I think this had more depth and breadth than many that we've done in the past. And frankly, this was I set the bar very high for the Civil Affairs Association, for the Civil Affairs Corps, and for all of our colleagues that have joined today. I'd also like to thank General Carter for being the keynote speaker today, and for each of the panels that took the time to really bring these thoughts together and be able to answer questions from the audience. So one last item I would like to highlight is, again, the issue paper. We have those coming up this year, and we'll push out some additional information on what those requirements are, but we would definitely can use all of your help, either writing papers yourself or recommending bright young personnel that are interested in civil affairs to take a stab at increasing the number of inputs that we have this year. So your help would be greatly appreciated with that. So the last thing I did want to touch on is the upcoming event. I'm not sure if JP is still engaged, but let me talk to this.
I can do it, sir, if you want.
Okay, go for it.
Yep. Hey, Caroline, do you have the save the date that I sent you last night?
I can pull it up.
Great, thank you so much. So, everybody, while Caroline is pulling up the save the date, which I'm going to post on the social media shortly after we all conclude here. So we have pretty excited to have our annual symposium coming back to the West Coast. I think it's been many, many years since that happened. So our symposium is going to be held from Thursday, November 13th until Sunday, November 15th of this year. The 13th is primarily just a travel day, and the members and board members are going to be holding our board meeting on that day. The symposium is going to be held during those days. Friday and Saturday will be the main event of the symposium. I'm going to have a series of panel discussions on Friday, followed by, and you can see it's coming up right here, and there's kind of a basic outline, followed by a keynote speakers on Saturday, possibly a couple more panels, discussion of the issue papers on Saturday. All this is kind of subject to change, but this is the basic sketch that we have. And then it's going to be capped off on Saturday with what we're planning on right now is a joint gala, kind of a dining out with in conjunction with the 358 Civil Affairs Brigade. And we'll have a chance for us to gather all the key leadership and everybody participating in the symposium, along with a lot of the soldiers, including a lot of junior and soldiers from 358 who are going to be out there. So it's going to be in the Los Angeles area. We do basically have a venue that's already set up. We haven't signed the contracts on it yet, but we're imminently going to. It's going to be, if anybody is familiar with it, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum, which is a pretty fantastic organization that partners with the National Archives, some beautiful Simi Valley, California, over in Reagan country. There's just probably about 30 or 40 minutes north of Los Angeles. Beautiful area. And we're going to be putting out details exactly what that's going to look like. The gala is pretty interesting. It's going to be held really underneath the wing of President Reagan's Air Force One, which they have in the massive hangar there. It's pretty beautiful if you've ever been there. So we're planning, and we've already started reaching out to some of our VIP guests, and going to be doing that over the next week, having a lot of people there. It can hold quite a lot of people. So we're looking forward to hopefully having everybody on this line, and then everybody else, key leadership both throughout use of KPOC, the active duty, including some foreign civil affairs. We are having this, by the way, in conjunction with 351 KCOM's civil military working group that they have every November, and we've deconflicted the dates, so it'll actually be complementing, the events will be complementing each other. So looking to have especially good turnout from PACOM, which not only include our military, U.S. military, but also foreign military, including hopefully some of the folks from ROC that are on this call, including many others. So lots more to say about that, but please put this on your calendar. It's going to be a fantastic event, both from a professional perspective and from a social perspective. And for those of you who don't know Los Angeles, we've also set aside a day towards the end on Sunday for a not necessarily a part of the official program, but a day to go out and do some interesting stuff throughout the Los Angeles and Southern California area. So unless there are any questions, did want to thank General Van Roos and also Caroline for facilitating all of this. But that's what we got for the symposium. Put it on your calendar, and that whole thing you just saw will be on social media in just a few minutes.
JP, thank you very much for that. I would like to finish up with one quick question for the group, and that is, this is the first time we have had a split forum that was quite like this. Specifically, this was done to maximize the availability across a variety of time zones. If you could, in the bottom of your screen in the React, if you could give a thumbs up if you think that this was a good way to do this, we can take that as a lesson learned going forward. And I see several popping up. Excellent. So thank you all for attending today. We use this as a way to continue the process of bringing some academic rigor and thought into the business of civil affairs. It continues to be a challenge as a profession because of the challenging times across the world right now. This should be a very interesting year. So your continued participation with association events, with writing, with the continued work that our military personnel and members, continue to work civil affairs issues with the combatant commands. Thank you all for participating with us today, and we are very much looking forward to hopefully seeing many of you at the symposium in California this November. Carolyn, any final thoughts that I've missed?
Nope, I think you caught everything, sir. We'll have the report as well as documents and any slides posted online as soon as we get those wrapped up. So you should see them in the next couple of weeks in the members only section.
Great. Thank you very much, folks.
Have a great night or morning, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.